in 2023 by SynLab Nigeria to educate the society on topical health issues. And this has gained tractions over the years. This is the third in the series for this year. SynLab, it's a diagnostic laboratory in Nigeria that provides a wide range of laboratory tests, from routine laboratory investigations to specialized tests and even molecular testing. And SynLab has been expanding its test menu over the years to accommodate for the need of the Nigerian populace. SynLab is known for excellent diagnostic services, innovation in diagnosis, and of course, integrity. Currently, SynLab has over 30 locations across the country. We value our clients, and we also value our prospective clients. And we would like to welcome you into any of our locations for your laboratory investigations, from routine investigations to specialized investigations as the need will require. We're gathered here today to discuss a very interesting topic that focuses on personalized medicine, which of course is referred to as the future of tailored healthcare. And I would like to ask, what should you expect today? You are going to learn about personalized medicine or precision medicine. And you are going to also learn how healthcare is beginning to shift from the model of one size fits all to treatment tailored model. And of course, again, you are also going to learn how genomics, biomarkers, including artificial intelligence, it's beginning to shape the concept of personalized medicine. Please kindly prepare your questions and drop them in the chat box. Your questions will be answered in the live section. And I would also like to tell you that a conversation this afternoon is going to be available on our YouTube channels. I would like to invite our resource person, Dr. Molupe Kuti, to take the presentation on personalized medicine, the future of tailored healthcare. I would also like to let us understand that we are going to be having like a poll while the presentation is going on. Would like to get your feedback so that this would help us to prepare better for our subsequent edition of this webinar. Resource person today is Dr. Modupe Akinrele Kuti. He is a consultant laboratory physician and international expert in clinical diagnosis, with over 2 decades of experience at the intersection of laboratory science and patient-centered care. Currently, is serving as a consultant clinical chemist at the Edward Francis Teaching Hospital in the Gambia, and as a volunteer expert with Medical Research Council unit in Banjul. Dr. Kuti is passionate about advancing healthcare through evidence-based, data-driven laboratory practices. His core expertise lies in risk assessment for cardiovascular diseases, diagnostic quality management, and optimizing the clinic and laboratory interface, all of which are essential pillars of personalized medicine. Dr. Kuti has served in a senior role at the University College Hospital Ibadan and also in SynLab Nigeria, and has contributed to global health initiatives, including the World Health Organization Essential Diagnostics List and the Lancet series on pathology and laboratory medicine, both of which advocate for more responsive, tailored, and accessible diagnostic services. As a long-time contributor to training, research, and policy, and a practitioner at the forefront of laboratory-driven clinical decision-making, Dr. Kuti brings deep insight into how personalized medicine can effectively integrated into healthcare system. I would like to welcome again Dr. Modupe Akinrele Kuti.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, we can hear you.
All right. So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, attending this webinar virtually, wherever you are on the globe. Dr. Kuti has introduced. First of all, I would like to start by appreciating the management of CELAB Nigeria, ably led by Kenneth Okole, for inviting me to participate in this webinar on personalized medicine. I've had some personal, practical insight into some aspects of the subject, especially from the clinical laboratory perspective. Hopefully, during this interaction, we can get some other perspectives as well. So let me share my slide. Okay. Just a minute, please. I'm still here. Okay. Can you see my slide now?
It's coming up.
Let me know when you can see the slide, please.
Oh, yes, we can see it. It's full screen now.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much. So, as Dr. Obi has introduced, the focus of this webinar is really discussion around the subject of personalized medicine, severally and frequently described as the future of healthcare, of tailored healthcare. So I think the start of a discussion is always helped by definitions for an introduction. So we can start by trying to frame a definition for personalized medicine right from the get-go. So personalized medicine is a way of practicing medicine that includes an individual genetic profile in clinical decision-making. In the practice of medicine, decisions have to be taken about care. Right. So anytime a doctor interacts with a patient, there are certain decisions that have to be taken in terms of what intervention to give, how to give the intervention, how much of the intervention, how long the intervention should last. Those are decisions that have to be taken when a doctor interacts with a patient. The deal about precision medicine is that that decision making includes an understanding of the genetic profile of the individual. So that is really the crux of personalized medicine. Usually decisions are taken based on, you can look at the patient's age, gender, lifestyle, medical history, and social family history. Those are things that ordinarily will influence a doctor's decision when he wants to make a decision on what treatment or what treatment plan to have for a patient. But the crux of personalized medicine is the fact that that decision making must include information about the genetic profile of the individual or of the patient being of the index patient. And as we go on in the discussion, you realize that you read that personalized medicine really is a way to classify individuals using their genetic profile into subpopulations that differ in their susceptibility to a particular disease, in the biology and or prognosis of those diseases that they may develop, or in their response to a specific treatment. So that's really the deal about personalized medicine. The focus is, how do I classify or identify some uniqueness about this individual in then making that then drives me to make a decision that is in context personalized for him. So in personalized medicine, decisions of care are made on the basis of the result of genetic test. That really is a good summary of the entire thing about personalized medicine. It's about decisions on care made on the basis of genetic tests. So in personalized medicine, we treat the person, not just the disease. So it's not like you come and see a patient who has there's a patient who has malaria. Everybody gets Coartem, two starts, one then followed by 8 hours later. You know, the usual way malaria is treated. But personalized medicine says, look, before I give you this anti-malaria, there are some things I need to know about your genetic profile that will then influence how I manage your malaria. So it's not just managing the malaria now, you're managing the person and not just the disease. As Dr. Bey has mentioned in the introduction, that the traditional approach is, is an approach that says one size fits most. So you expect that most people with malaria, if they are this particular age and they come from this particular section of the country, of the world, this drug will work for them. All right, this dosage regimen will work for them. But the thrust of personalized medicine is that, look, that is not enough to decide what you're going to do. You need to factor in their genetic profile. So there's some personalization in the traditional approach, in the current approach as well. It's not like you treat both adults and children the same way. So we personalize based on age, we personalize based on gender. But the crux of personalized medicine is that when you are deciding what to do, you must bring in genetic information about that person in front of you. So that is, I think, a good way to start the discussion about personalized medicine. So now, as we'll go on, like I said, that is really the information from the genes that influences the decision making in personalized medicine. So let's talk about genes. Genes really are the basis of our individuality. Our genetic code is packed into our DNA, which are tightly packed into the 23 pairs of chromosomes that each individual has. And genes are small sections of that DNA which code for proteins and regulate their synthesis. So genes are small segments of our DNA that code for proteins. And it is estimated that there are between 20,000 to 25,000 genes in each individual. That's roughly about 1,000 genes per chromosome for every person. And now, interestingly, majority of our DNA, so the genes are small sections of DNA. There are other parts of the DNA that are not genes in a sense, and that really constitutes the larger portion of our DNA. But even though they do not code for proteins directly, they have regulatory functions on the sections of the DNA, the genes that do code for proteins. So essentially saying that our genes and other parts of the DNA that regulate them determine the proteins in our body. Now, this is a very important point to make and to understand and to appreciate as we go on in discussion, that so our genes, whether our DNA, whether the genes that code for proteins or the other parts of the DNA that regulate those genes essentially determine the proteins that are present in our body. And from our basic biology, from secondary school, primary school, they say proteins are the building blocks of life. So they are the main determinants as to how our bodies function. Okay, so the point here is that our genes code for proteins, and those proteins determine how our body functions. So genes, proteins, body function. It's important to have that relationship properly aligned in our mind as we go on. Now, although human beings are essentially, they said our genetic makeup is about 99.9% the same, there are differences that exist in our DNA. Okay, the estimated 0.1% difference in our DNA due to variation in the regions of our DNA. For example, there are portions of DNA where there are 1 letter changes in DNA. There could be insertions or deletions. That should be small segments of DNA that are missing from one person that is present in another person, and there are structural variants that may be inversions that may be present in some individuals' DNA that may not be present in other ones. Some people might have a more copies of a particular gene than other people. So there are these subtle differences that exist in our DNA. Now, although these differences are small, 0.1% difference, it is estimated that this could account for for millions of differences in our genetic makeup. So at the end of our as the end of our products, of our genes, our protein, there's opportunity for significant differences in our protein pool and bodily functions. Let me just emphasize that a bit more. So our genes, our DNA differs 0.1%, margin of 0.1% difference, but because that can affect our protein pool, because genes, like I said before, genes determine the proteins that we make. If there's any difference in our genes, it will affect the proteins that we make, and that will affect the way our body functions. So these small differences can have significant differences in the difference in bodily functions between two individuals. Okay, so differences in genes can result in differences in bodily functions. Now, just to take a bit back to, I'm sure this may be a bit primary school or secondary school for some people, but I think it's important in this discussion that, so how do these differences in body functions, how are they expressed? So they may be expressed in difference in the enzymes that are present in our body. Proteins, enzymes are proteins. So proteins function as enzymes. So there could be subtle differences in the enzymes in our bodies. There could be subtle differences in the protein, in the storage proteins that our body has. There could be differences in how our hormones function. There could be difference in the proteins that make up our tissues. So the proteins that are present in my liver may be slightly different from the proteins that are present in somebody else's liver. The proteins in my muscle may be slightly different from the protein that's in another person's muscles. Okay, there could be differences even in defensive proteins. Even our immune system could function differently. So my antibodies might might function differently from yours, and may react to viruses slightly differently from yours. There could be differences in the receptor proteins. Those are the proteins that cells and tissues use to receive or to receive information or to receive things that determine how the cells function. So there could be subtle differences in that as well. So the differences in our genes could make our proteins look different. They could make our proteins act or interact differently, or in fact, in some instances, the differences in our genes could actually result in some proteins being absent completely. So it's important to keep this gene protein linkage properly aligned in our mind. So when we're talking about genetic diversity, the reality in the expressions of in the way the body functions is expressed in the proteins that are then part of that make up our enzymes, our hormones, our structural proteins, our receptors, even our immune system. So the difference in our genes could make our proteins look different, act different, interact differently, or in some instances be absent at all. So just to kind of highlight that, although we say 0.1% difference, that is not a lot. That's quite a lot actually, because that's not something to be ignored. So I bring in the case of, because we know about sickle cell anemia, We know that it's really a debilitating, devastating disease that can actually affect quality of life and length of life quite significantly. But what is responsible for that disorder? It is just a change in one base pair in a gene that is over 1,000 base pairs long. Just one base pair difference results in that degree of clinical condition that we have to deal with. So small differences, we say, but can have significant impact in how the body functions. So the difference in hemoglobin protein affects the structure, the function of hemoglobin, the structure of the hemoglobin, even though it's just one base pair long. That's one base pair. If you look at it in the context of a gene that is 1,400 base pairs long, that's really just about 0.1% as well. So those differences can actually be significant. Now, just to also look at what is to roll back, how did this story of personalized medicine actually start? It really goes back to the Human Genome Project, which was an international collaboration of scientists that happened sometime started in 1990, extended for about 15 years, about 13 years really, and really with the goal of the scientists in US, China, Japan, UK, they wanted to basically describe the entire genetic profile of a human being. So to sequence, to determine the order of all the genes and all the non-coding gene, the non-coding regions of the DNA for human being. And they did that. And one of the offshoots of that effort was the fact that they now found out that actually that some genes were linked to certain diseases. They began to realize that some genes, when they were present in some people, actually was linked to certain diseases. Okay, so that started the discussion, that strengthened the discussion between the impact of genetic makeup and diseases. The other thing that also happened as a result of the Human Genome Project was the fact that it fostered the development of new tools. So we began to develop tools that enabled us to then study even in more depth, in more and with greater speed and with greater accuracy, the variations that occurred in the genetic profile of human beings. It also fosters some disciplines that enables us to study the complexity of the human biology. So you started having disciplines like the proteomics, metabolomics, that really, and even bioinformatics, that allowed us to be able to really study and understand the complexities of the human biology, of human physiology. And then on the basis of that project, other projects continue to delve into more and more, even till now, began to delve into the relationship of human genetic variation and health. So the Human Genome Project actually laid the foundation for personalized medicine, describing the entire genome of the human being, okay, this is what a human genetic, the entire component of the human genetic information, this is what it should look like. All right, they describe that and then identify the linkages with various diseases. Now, so how do we then, on the basis of how do we then apply personalized medicine? Now, I've tried to group it into two areas. One for the patient, and one that's for somebody that is actually that is ill, that is seeking healthcare, and one for someone that is not ill, who is just trying to make lifestyle choices to enhance his health. So we start by looking at the applications of precision medicine in the context of the individual seeking health. Now, I mentioned to you that one of the disciplines that the Human Genome Project fostered the development of certain disciplines, one of which is pharmacogenomics. And pharmacogenomics essentially studied the variability in drug response due to genetic factors, predicting response to a specific therapy, as well as their susceptibility to toxic or other adverse effects. So basically it's saying that we can predict how you respond to a particular drug based on your genetic profile. That your genetic profile can predict how you react to a particular drug. It can tell us whether you are likely to benefit from that drug. It can tell us whether the drug, the chances of you developing toxic or adverse effects from that drug. That is essentially what pharmacogenomics is. Studying the variability in human response to drugs based on their genetic profile. And they'll, okay, so people in populations have shown that the response to treatment between patients to certain medications vary by up to about 60%. That is, the differences in how two individuals respond to a drug can vary by as much as 50%. All right. Given a particular dose of a drug, some patients may have decreased efficacy of the drug, some patients may have the expected response, and some patients may have an increased risk of toxicity. And it's also been described that, at least in the Caucasian population, that 95% of the Caucasian population have something in their genetic makeup that will cause you to adjust the dose of a drug that they should receive. At least 95%. That's very close to 100% of the Caucasian population, that there's something in their genes that if you know about that, if you have that information, you will adjust the dose of a drug that they should receive. So this variation in genes is actually due to the fact that there are certain genes that code for certain enzymes that are involved in the metabolism of drugs. Now, I told you about that we should keep in mind the relationship between genes and proteins. Proteins and enzymes are proteins. So because of the variation in the genetic profile in our genetic profile, the enzymes that are required to metabolize drugs can be different in between us. So my genes may code for an enzyme that metabolizes a drug much quicker than another person. All right. So in that instance, I may not get the full benefit of the drug. So you give me a standard dose, my drug, my metabolism may metabolize that drug faster than another person who takes the same dose and metabolizes optimally. On the contrary, somebody whose enzymes code for an enzyme that doesn't metabolize that drug faster then gets into the scenario where he's exposed to the drug for longer, and so has a tendency of developing side effects for that drug. And some of the drugs we are talking about are not fancy drugs. They are drugs like the variation in our genes can affect how we metabolize as drugs as common as Panadol that people use without any prescription, anti-malarials, statins, hypertensives. So these are drugs that people are using. If you don't know what their genetic profile is, you may not realize that actually the dose you are giving is either suboptimal or excessive. That information is available if you do the genetic profile to understand how they will respond to that drug. Now, what are the indications for pharmacogenomics? All right. So when should you consider screening somebody for pharmacogenetic variants of importance? Now, this may be important for you to do if you're given a drug that you know that if you give this drug, the side effects may be severe, such that it has permanent consequences. You should screen for how that individual will handle that drug. If you know that if you give this drug, if the person doesn't metabolize it well and he experiences side effects, the consequences may be permanent. It may be an indication to do a pharmacogenetic profile for that drug. Or when the evaluation of the drug's effect is only possible after months or years of administration. That means you give the drug, the side effects may not show immediately. It may show months, years later, and the damage may have been done if you will not know. In that instance, it may be also advisable to do to ask for a pharmacogenetic profile. The other instance that is also recommended is if you have somebody the person already has a bad prognosis, all right? So you're already dealing with somebody who has a fairly serious condition. You don't want to worsen the person's condition by giving a drug that is going to make him, unwell, but it's going to make his prognosis even worse. So in that instance, you may also need to screen him for any the presence of any pharmacogenetic variants that could affect how it metabolizes the drug. So when should you do pharmacogenetic testing? Now you can do it preemptively. So, and that is what some people do. So you can go and say, look, I want to screen, and those profiles are available. You can go and say, I want to assess how I will metabolize a 200 drugs, and those profiles are available. Even in Nigeria, there are places you can do that, and they will tell you, oh, when you want to take anti-malaria, the way your genes are struck, the way your genetic profile is, you should not take the regular dose, or you should take a lower dose, or you should take a higher dose. That you can get that information even before you need to use medicinal product. Or, as I said above, you can do it on an obligatory basis. When you want to give a particular drug, as given indications are listed above, you can then also do the pharmacogenetic testing at that point. Or you can do it as a reactive basis after somebody develops a side effect and you're wondering, why is this person developing side effect on this regular dose? You can also do pharmacogenomic testing. Now, the other application, I mean, there are quite a number of applications of precision medicine, of personalized medicine. We'll just look at a few of them here, so that for the purpose of time. Another way personalized medicine has also been applied is based on what we call gene-based drug targeting. Now, the consequence of the Human Genome Project and the consequent scientific efforts that followed it was the identification of disease association with specific genes and genetic pathways. All right, so Human Genome Project was able to identify so this particular disease is associated with this particular gene or associated with this particular genetic pathway. So one gene produces the gene produces a protein product, and then protein product does something. They were able to identify pathways of disease. And of course, the pharmacy industry picked it up and then began to develop biologic agents or drugs, you can call them, with specific activity for those associations. So we began to develop drugs that targeted the presence of particular abnormal genes or the gene products, either the proteins or the signaling, either the enzymatic proteins or the signaling proteins that they produce. So the association of genes with disease was noted. Pharmaceutical industry developed biologic agents that could target those genetic abnormalities. Now, majority of these biological agents that were developed were mostly related to cancer treatment, not exclusively. There are other areas, infection, that also have biologic agents developed for them. But majority of the activity of this gene-based drug targeting is in the concept of cancer treatment, also referred to as precision oncology, which basically describes the molecular profiling of tumors to identify targetable alterations that will inform therapy selection. So you're looking at somebody who has a cancer, you want to do a genetic profile of that individual so they can identify whether he has any mutation for which a biologic agent is available, right? There's more than enough evidence that for an increasing number of drugs used in the clinic, the likelihood of a patient's response to treatment is strongly influenced by the alterations in the genome of the individual. So there's increasing evidence that, look, if you understand the individual's genetic profile, you can give him drugs that can greatly influence the outcome of his treatment. Now, how do these precision oncology biologics work. There are various mechanisms that are being proposed, but just to highlight one of them, there's the concept of mechanism-based drug targeting of oncodrivers. Now, oncogenic drivers are genetic alterations responsible for cancer progression. That means there are things that happen at the genetic level that really is responsible for why that cancer continues to progress. Those are genetic oncogenic drivers. The mutations or the alterations at the genetic level that result in the energy or the fuel of the cancer. So this mechanism-based drug targeting of oncodrivers is targets, you have targeted blocking the activity of such mutated or overexpressed oncogene. All right. So you are target. So there's an oncogenic driver that is driving a cancer. You know how it works. Then there's a biological agent that can then attack or block the activity of that oncogenic driver, and so improve outcome. A classic case is the tyrosine kinase inhibitor that are used for the disease CML. Of course, we know about this Philadelphia chromosome that is present in CML, and the BCR-ABL fusion protein. What that BCR-ABL fusion protein does is actually a constitutively active tyrosine kinase. No, tyrosine kinase ordinarily you should be able to switch them on and switch them off. So if the body wants to something wants to grow, you can switch off the tyrosine kinase. If you don't need growth anymore, you switch it off. But the BCR-ABL fusion protein in CML is active all the time. So it's driving growth all the time. It's promoting cell growth and survival. So what the tyrosine kinase inhibitor does is to block the active site of that enzyme and so induce remission. That is precision oncology at work. So genetic alterations can also be used as biomarkers in the context of precision oncology. You can also have genetic alterations that are used as biomarkers to identify the patients most likely to benefit from a particular treatment or to select the right drug for the particular genetic makeup of a patient's tumor. So you can look at an individual's genetic profile and determine, this is outside of the mechanism of the mechanism or the biology of the cancer. You can look at an individual's genetic profile and based on that be able to say that, okay, this particular drug will work in this patient, but this drug will not work in this patient based on their different genetic makeup. So, for example, there's a group of drugs called PARP inhibitors, which function by blocking the enzyme PARP. Now, this PARP enzyme, actually what it does is that it helps cancer cells to repair their DNA, all right? So, allowing them to live longer. So, PARP inhibitors block this enzyme and so stop the cancer. So, basically, the cancer then die. But beyond this mechanism, it's been shown that people who have a BRCA1 or 2 mutation actually derive more benefit from these inhibitors than other people. So these PRP inhibitors will work for everybody with cancer who has this enzyme active. But for people with BRCA1 and 2 mutations, they derive more benefit than other people. So that is also in the concept of precision oncology. Now, the effective use, one of the things you would hear frequently in personalized medicine is the concept of companion diagnostics. So, like I said, for personalized medicine to take a decision, you have to have a genetic test. You have to do a laboratory test that provides that genetic information, and that's really what companion diagnostics are about. All right, so the effective use of these biologic agents that have been developed by the pharmaceutical agency requires the availability of information that indicates that the molecular alteration or genetic profile necessary for it to function is present in the patient. So this IVD companion diagnostic device basically helps us to identify those who will benefit from a particular treatment or those who may experience adverse effects from the use of the drug. So companion diagnostics, if you hear the term, they're essentially medical tests or genetic tests that provide information about the usefulness, the effectiveness of a particular drug in the context of a patient that the doctor is seeing. Does this patient have the genetic mutation or genetic alteration or genetic profile that makes this drug useful for him? That question can be answered by the use of companion diagnostics, which are basically medical tests or genetic tests that are used for that purpose. Now, going to the other aspect of, okay, does precision medicine, how does personalized medicine work for somebody who really has no, I don't have a cancer, I don't have a disease, can I get any benefit from personalized medicine? Yes, personalized medicine has also been deployed in the context of risk assessment. This is the process of identifying individuals who are more likely to develop a specific health condition before symptoms appear. So it's more like a screening thing. There's no symptom, there's no sign, there's no indication present now that says a disease, a particular disease will arise in the future. But you can look at the person's gene and say, okay, yes, based on your genes, there's a likelihood that you will develop this disease in the future. And the rationale for such identification is that if you can get that information early, you can intervene in a way that can prevent or develop or delay the development of the disease, or in fact, if the disease then occur, you're able to identify it and pick it up early when management is much easier, much cheaper, and the outcomes may be better. And there's information really that suggests that when you combine genetic information with lifestyle data and other medical history, you can actually determine those individuals who are at risk of chronic diseases like diabetes mellitus and chronic kidney disease, which may allow for early intervention. It's also been shown that for women with BRCA1/2 oncogenic mutation, women who have that mutation and a family history of breast cancer, they are severely increased risk of developing breast cancer. And so, unlike other people who may not start screening for breast cancer until maybe they're 35 or they're 40, these individuals, once you identify them, they have this mutation, they have that family history, you may need to start screening them from as early as 25 years of age so that you can catch the cancer early and then intervene and get a good outcome. Now, the other way that precision medicine is also applied is it actually also helps in making lifestyle choices. No, so there are personalized medicine lifestyle related packages which are available from some healthcare facilities and laboratories, some of which is available in Nigeria, and I've seen such reports in Nigeria, that you have a one in a lifetime genetic analysis that give information and advice on diverse lifestyle issues. Now, so an individual can go to the lab and say, okay, well, I want to do I want my genetic profile assessed with regards to this thing. For example, as we said, you can say, I want to go to the lab, I want to see how my body handles drugs. That is still in the context, but you can also ask, this genetic analysis can also give you such detailed information about your risk of gaining weight. How much nutritional requirements do you require? So, for example, you know that when you talk about nutritional requirements, there's what they call RDA, recommended daily allowance. You may realize that for your biology, that RDA may actually be too much or too little for you. So this genetic analysis can actually give such information. How does my body metabolize alcohol? Am I a fast metabolizer or am I a slow metabolizer? They can give you question about your tendency for insatiability and hunger. How my genes, do they code for me to get hungry fast, or do they code for me to get full quickly? So you can get that information from personalized medicine diagnostics that can help you to make even this almost, like, say, daily life decisions. So I try to bring up some reports here of some of this analysis that I've seen. So, for example, this is a report that assesses an individual's response to polyunsaturated fats. So the result at the end of the analysis, they say the information is that you are the carrier of two common copies of PPAR alpha gene, which causes you to respond perfectly normally to polyunsaturated fats. And based on that finding, they then recommend that your genetic makeup indicated that you respond perfectly normally to polyunsaturated fats. Nevertheless, do not forget about them because they are very beneficial for your health, and so on and so forth. Another one, this is another extract that looks at how the person handles triglycerides. It says the result, your genes are mostly unfavorable and indicate a higher triglyceride level. So they then say, try to limit your daily calorie intake to a recommended value as much as it is the key to losing body weight. It's also the key to decreasing the triglyceride level, because triglycerides have the relationship with cardiovascular disease and all that. So this is, the person can make that lifestyle choice. It doesn't have cardiovascular disease, but he can begin to make changes based on his diet, based on this result, to begin to get benefit, the health benefit of it. Another one he says, caffeine metabolism. Said the result shows the genetic analysis has shown that you are the carrier of two favorable copies of CYP1A2 gene, which is linked with the rapid caffeine metabolism. That means caffeine is quickly removed from your body. All right. And then says, because of your genotype, you are less susceptible to the risk of health complications related to increased blood pressure. So this person can drink coffee, so you can as much as like, although they do recommend that you should not drink more than 3 cups of coffee a day. So you shouldn't, so somebody that has this genetic profile will be able to tolerate more coffee than somebody uh, uh, who has an alternative profile. So these are ways that personalized medicine, genetic information used in context for can help you to even make daily decisions in terms of, what you eat, what you don't eat, and all that. And there are different other things that are also available in this concept, but these are just exemplary that I've shown. Now, finally, of course, the ethical issues with regards to the practice of personalized medicine. One is the fact that, when your genetic profile is your genetic profile forever, all right? Right now, medicine is not, at least not on a large scale, at least not altering genetic profile. So once your genetic profile is known, that is who you are, and that is how you will be. So it's important before people are profiled that they understand the implications of the genetic profile information that they're about to receive, that they're about to get information that labels them permanently for the rest of their life, and they cannot change. It also should be clear that, look, when you do genetic profile, there are things you may be looking for B, but you may find C, and say, oh, okay, you may find something that is unexpected that may cause, anxiety that you did not prepare for. It might lead to treatment that you may not actually would have be required. So those are things to deal with, so people must be aware. You want to do a genetic profile, you want to have your genetic makeup profile, you must understand that those are things that could happen. And then, of course, because on the basis of that, you also want to keep your genetic information very private. Okay, you have profiled me. Who has access to my profile? All right. How am I sure that nobody without my authorization has access to the information that is very personal to me? All right, because that is me. It's something I cannot change. And then on the basis of that, discrimination may occur. So people know that, oh, this person is likely to have this particular disease at this stage in life, or this person is likely to have this particular condition. How do the insurance agency deal with the person? I mean, do they say, oh, this person, because of your genetic profile, we're going to increase your premium? Or employers say, look, this person is likely to develop a health condition that may bring a burden on our health. So do we want to employ this person? So those are important ethical issues to consider in personalized medicine. Then, of course, a big elephant in the room is the cost and access to these services. It's not cheap. It's not cheap at all. All right. So the diagnosis is expensive, the treatment is expensive. The questions of equitable access, is it just going to be something that's going to be available for rich people, and poor people will just continue to, suffer the consequences of traditional care? How do we ensure that this expensive stuff is not only available to the politicians, at least? So, in conclusion, I think I've tried to share some insight into the subject of personalized medicine, to show that really it's a way to tailor healthcare, to guide daily decision making, to guide the decisions that your doctor makes on behalf of, makes in your care. And it is certainly has more benefit than the traditional care, which basically assumes a one-size-fits-most approach. I'll be glad to take any questions going forward. Thank you very much.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so very much. At the beginning, we said this was going to be an insightful section. And I want to believe that you will agree with me that it has been a very insightful section. So we want to thank you, sir, Dr. Mdupe Kuti, for the insightful section on personalized medicine. I really appreciate the depth of the knowledge that you have shared with us. And again, more importantly for me, how you've been able to clearly explain these very complex and evolving concepts in medicine. I am sure, I have no doubt in my mind that the participant has learned so much about these concepts. And I am not surprised, but of course, we believe that we have learned so much. Thank you so very much. Please, if you have questions, drop your question on the chat box. Dr. Kuti will be taking your question any moment from now. I want to appeal to us. I want to believe that the webinar pool must have been sent to us by now. Please take your time to complete this feedback. It's important for us. It will help us to get better on this commitment to educating the public. We value your feedback. Please, if you have questions, drop your question in the chat box, and Dr. Kuti will take your question. I have 2 questions sent to me already. While we're waiting for other questions to drop, I would like to ask questions that are sent already. I have 2 questions here already while we're waiting for other questions to be sent to the chat box. Dr. Kuti, sir, what's the best way for someone to start exploring their genetic profile safety? And what can you speak? The person says that he would also like you to speak more on the affordability of this genetic profile.
Okay, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, we can hear you.
All right, so yeah, I think so. The other questions that I also see in the chat box that I will just try to address together. So clearly, precision medicine, like I said, on an ethical issue, is not cheap. It's not cheap anywhere in the world. Actually, it's not just whether you're a developing country or in Nigeria. It's not cheap anywhere in the world. So, so it's something that needs to be planned for. Now, what do I mean by that? You know, in places where precision medicine has been established, there is a plan of how to implement it on a national scale. It's not just one individual or one organization or one group of individuals that start the thing. It's a whole, what they call an ecosystem, a precision medicine ecosystem that involves government, that involves regulators, that involves scientists, that involves universities, that involve, you know, so you need to have, and critically from the affordability point, involves insurance agencies. So the best way to really deal with accessibility and affordability is, first of all, for us to recognize in this context in Nigeria, I mean, which genetic test, for example, has best benefits. So look at a particular disease, for example, some diseases like maybe like breast cancer is something that is uncomfortably common in our country, to ask ourselves, okay, can we say, okay, for anybody that has breast cancer who has insurance, has access to a profile that describes the kind of drugs that he can or cannot use? That may be a good start, but that is, insurance have to have a say in that discussion. Who is going to, because of course everything has to be paid for. So which one is going to come from government, which is going to come from the individual? So there has to be the best approach to addressing access and affordability to precision to personalized medicine is really from the insurance perspective. So there has to be that national level discussion that guarantees that. And I got some information about 2 years ago that said that luckily there's some discussion that even within the national our national health insurance, there's actually opportunity for some testing to occur, well, for some drugs to be available, for some drugs, some biologic agents that target specific mutations in breast cancer to be available, but they didn't have to work out how to get the diagnostics that are from. So it's an insurance, it's insurance that deals with accessibility and affordability. That's just the bottom line of what I'm trying to say. So I don't know whether that addresses the issue of financing it. It's really so that it becomes accessible to more people. It has to be on the platform of health insurance. You have to have insurance agencies that are willing to include this in their discussion. And there was a consortium that started about 2 years ago where we tried to, discuss with insurance agencies about that. But, because some big people are not involved, it really did not, at least it didn't progress much. Try to, in that regard. But it's certainly a discussion that needs to be had at the national level as to how we can include this test in our offerings of our insurance packages. Any other question? Did I answer all
Thank
the
you
questions?
so much. I think we have quite a number of questions on the chat box now. Because of our time, you could just please take the first 7 and maybe responses to the other could be sent privately to the people that ask the questions because of our time.
Okay, so
Thank you, sir.
Are there limitations to personalized medicine? Yeah, of course, yes. The major limitations. Okay, so the other thing I think also needs to be mentioned about personalized medicine is the fact that the 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 decisions that the associations that are described are based on the gathering of data from populations. All right, so you look at 10,000 people, 1,000 who have a particular disease condition, and then you see how their genetic profile is related to that disease condition. Unfortunately, a lot of the information that is available currently on those associations are really from developed countries, the America, the Europe, and all that. So there's not a lot of African information in that pool that they used to make those associations. So some of the associations that have been described that have been shown to be effective, you may come to Africa and realize that there may be some genetic diversity in our population that actually limits the utility of those things. So one of the major limitations of personalized medicine, particularly in our setup, is the fact that there's not a lot of African data. Of course, people are working to address that gap, but that is a major limitation to the practice of personalized medicine in Nigeria. Of course, costs and access is the other one. So with regard to the pharmacogenetic test, usually it's a once in a lifetime. You don't need to do pharmacogenetic all the time. Once you do it once you have your profile, it tells you your genes, it tells you how you can handle a particular drug. That's not going to change about you. So it's a one. There's usually one in a lifetime test. So, question: what effort are we making to make this genetic information of patients private and not to be accessed by the public? Yeah, so like I said, those are discussions that need to be had at the national level. All right, so we need to decide as a country how we are going to manage the whole, landscape of precision medicine. In fact, the Human Genome Project that I talked about, in a big chunk of their budget was really to address this issue of ethics regards to precision medicine. So it's a big thing that needs to be addressed at the national level. How do we protect our health information? It's not something you can put in a folder and then put in a room where somebody can go and just pick the folder and begin to read what the person's profile is. So how do we, develop maybe our laboratory, our medical information systems with proper access control so that people's profile are not accessible to just anybody. Again, the issue of cost. Of course, cost is an issue, as we've said before. Those tests are not cheap. The technology is not cheap. Any new technology usually takes a while before the costs begin to come down. Then somebody talks about AI. How does AI apply in personalized medicine? Now, AI is particularly important. Now, I don't know whether you had there was a recent article or recent pronouncement by Microsoft about how they found out that artificial intelligence could diagnose diseases more effectively than experienced physicians. So they got a number of cases and they presented information to doctors, experienced doctors, and they gave the same thing to AI. And AI got pass rate was 80%. The doctor's pass rate was 20%. Now, the reason why I think that applies is because when you're thinking of personalized medicine, we're dealing with we're dealing with a lot of data. All right, you're looking at a lot of information. So the amount of information that's available, because you're looking at, say 25,000 genes, 100,000 proteins, how they're interacting. How do you even begin to a human mind cannot even begin to deal about how that interaction, all the interactions that could occur at that level. So sadly, artificial intelligence will go. I mean, it's important in actually trying to tease out the relationships that could be present that a human brain really cannot handle. Yeah. So the next question is, my question is that despite molecular or genetic for alcohol methods. My question is that despite molecular or genetic tests for alcohol methods is okay on the enzymes coding for, I'm sure I don't. Does this mean alcohol becomes safe or it can be included in other pathologies? This is applicable. So basically, what there's an issue here. Nobody will sell you alcohol is not safe. All right. So it's not as if alcohol becomes safe. I'm just trying to clarify the question. It's not saying that alcohol becomes safe. You will not see a medical textbook that will tell you that alcohol is not safe. What is not good is alcoholism, all right, or you're using too much alcohol. So alcohol as a drink, people have even demonstrated that it has some beneficial effects. So I think it's important to say alcohol is not a toxin, as it were. But if it's used too much, then it can become a toxin. So I don't know whether that addresses or clarifies that a bit. So of course, the question of cost keeps coming up. How expensive genetic profiling is not cheap. It can be quite expensive. I'm sure if I mention the cost of, so the last I knew about somebody that profiled for the profile is he did a profile for drugs sometime about 2-3 years ago that I knew. The cost of the profile for one person was about maybe 500,000, and that was when dollar was maybe 300 or 400. So I can imagine right now we're probably counting millions. So they're not cheap at all. But when you say general, so in the concept of general applicability for precision medicine, I think one of the things I want to say, rather than just dismiss and say it's not cheap, that it's not cheap, so it's far-fetched, is the fact that we have to plan for it. We have to start planning for how we're going to implement it. That is the key thing. It's not something we can ignore and wish away and say, well, it's there in US. And it's even in those places, there are plans for it. The Human Genome Project lasted almost 15 years. So people plan for things. You have to plan, how do I begin to, and there are steps to take. There are things you can begin to do now that can, in 5 years, 8 years, 10 years, can materialize into this thing being practically available to everybody. But if we just say it's not cheap and then we ignore it, it will never become cheap. All right. Or some obnoxious persons will get into the market and start doing stuff that we may not then be able to control. So precision medicine, yes, it's been adopted quite in some places. So there have been national programs that have gone ahead, at least in some Scandinavian countries, that have gone ahead to establish this the practice of this, because it's a whole ecosystem that needs to be worked on. Like I said, regulation has to be there, ethical issues have to be addressed, laboratory information systems have to be there, data has to be there, artificial intelligence has to be there, scientists have to be involved, the technology, the laboratories. So everything has to, you can't take one and ignore the others. You have to build the whole ecosystem as a group. So, and that takes national level planning. If you don't plan at national level, it will never become cheap and you'll never really be integrated significantly in the society. Of course, there's some places, like I said, in Nigeria, for some drugs, there's some pharmaceutical agencies, for pharmaceutical companies that they have some of these drugs, some of the biologic agents that they have developed. So they will give you they will help you do the test. And once you get the result, then you then buy the drug from them. But that is not sustainable on the large scale. It's something, if you want to do it on the large scale, then it has to be something planned at the national level. Otherwise, it's not one institution, it's not one university or one college of medicine or one hospital saying we want to do. It's not one research group. It has to be something done at a national level, a plan to institute precision medicine for us as a country. That's the way other countries where it has worked, that's how it has worked, And like I said, there's no point reinventing the wheel. See, what part can solve the topic computer science play in personalized medicine? A lot. Or like I said, the information in personalized that is required for executing personalized medicine is more than the human brain can handle. So certainly computers will have a big role to play in the implementation and execution of PM in Nigeria. Is there any regulatory framework for genetically personalized medicine in Nigeria? I'm not aware, and that's a very mild way of saying there isn't. So there is no framework for that. Okay. So any other issues Dr. B, anything from your end?
Thank you again so very much, Dr. Kuti, for what you have done this evening. Because of our time, we are a very responsive organization. Our bargain is 1.5 hours, and we have less than 10, 12 minutes on this call. So we're rounding up at this moment. Please, if you have not filled the feedback pool, kindly ensure you do that. Again, Dr. Modupe Kuti, we want to thank you so very much for your time, for the insightful presentation, and also for how much you have dealt with all the questions and concerns that has been raised. We're rounding up now. I want to believe that we have enjoyed the session. Dr. Kuti has been able to, or you discussed, around personalized medicine, and then he emphasizes the concept of one size not fitting all. And then he also mentioned the different modalities that are available, the pharmacogenetics that speaks to, trying to profile you to know what drug works for you, what will not work for you, and what can also cause trouble for you, and then that will guide you on what to do. He has also mentioned gene-based drug targeting that is used in cancer management, and several other concepts that he has mentioned. And he rounded up around the ethical issues and the privacy issue around personalized medicine. It has been quite an insightful section. We want to thank you so very much, Dr. Kuti, for this. We want to also thank our participants for their time. And I would like to mention that some of these solutions, they are available with SynLab. We have 3 of these solutions with us. We have my PGX that addresses the pharmacogenetics aspects. We have NutriF that deal with the diet and the nutritional insights, like Dr. Kuti has mentioned. We also have the Sport Gene. These are the 3 personalized medicine products that is available within SynLab. Like I said, we are expanding. I mean, based on need, we could expand to more package on personalized medicine. So you can visit any of our locations across the country if you are interested, either for yourself or your friends and loved ones, on any of these package that suits your need. Would also want to encourage us to please connect with us on all our social media platforms, on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and on TikTok. We want to again appreciate you, and to also mention that this section is going to be available on our YouTube channel. We hope to see you again in our next session, and we want to say thank you to everyone who has joined us for this webinar section. Please do have a very beautiful evening.